Huge live news breaking over last evening into this morning. And our next guest, we actually had him on a few weeks ago when Bob Weeks went one-on-one with Bob Harig, who is the senior writer for Sports Illustrated, SI.com. Also wrote the book Tiger and Phil, Golf's Most Fascinating Rivalry, which is why Bob went one-on-one with Bob and had him on a couple of weeks ago to talk about the new book. But Bob had the opportunity to go one-on-one with Phil Mickelson prior to Phil leaving for the first live event in London. It's been silent society for Phil Mickelson for about 3-4 months. He's finally spoke to someone, and Bob had the opportunity to do that. So, Bob, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to join Adam and I this morning here on Golf Talk Canada. I'm sure you're just getting bombarded from every angle right now with people wanting to pick your brain on this situation. I'll start by asking you this. A lot of the language in your piece on SI.com, the morning read, sounds a little bit softer from Phil, talks about therapy, talks about regrets, apologies. Did it come across sincere to you in your conversation? Do you believe that there's actually been reflecting for Phil Mickelson over the last 4 months?
Yeah, I don't, first of all, thanks for having me, but I don't think there's any question about that. He's got to say some of those things and feel some of those things after all this time. I mean, clearly, it's been tumultuous, and no matter where you stand on this, he probably didn't handle it right a few months ago. He admitted that. He admitted to some issues that he's had. I was very surprised actually that he talked pretty freely about the gambling. That he admitted there was an addiction issue with gambling, and he was embarrassed by it. He was embarrassed by how much that became a problem. So, I think this is part of it. It's not going to do him any good to be defiant. And so I thought that was a first step. And he's going to meet the media here tomorrow, and I'm sure that'll be some more of the same. And then we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, Bob, that's where I was going next. So you are in London, and Phil is going to meet the media. Obviously, he gave his first sort of public remarks in quite some time to you. But what do you think it's going to be like tomorrow in the Live press room center when he does speak to the assorted media there?
He'll get grilled pretty hard on the whole Saudi backing of the tour. There's no question. I mean, I saw that today with the guys who were brought up. I mean, that's just a big talking point. It's obviously the elephant in the room, so to speak. I think Phil, given what he said about it earlier, I just think that's going to be a big part of the questioning. Now, they're doing their best to shield him a little bit because they're going to have him up there with other players. And to be honest with you, I think it's one of the reasons that Phil gave the interview to me yesterday, because it diffuses it a little bit when some of the answers are out there. It's just human nature. And so now, like he's addressed some of these things already. The shock value has worn off a little bit. But that doesn't mean you won't get the questions again. And I think it has a chance to be a little bit tense. The Saudi issue, the Saudi funding is a huge part of this. Look, even if it wasn't Saudi funding, going against the PGA Tour would be a big part of this. You throw in the funding, and you've got these two things there that are, they're controversial. Let's be honest, they're very, very controversial. And look at the distraction it is. You've got the Canadian Open this week. It hasn't been played in 3 years, and here we are talking about this, and so you can imagine that the tour hierarchy doesn't like this. It's taken some attention away, and has the potential to do that more so down the road.
Bob, what I found most surprising from your interview, you asked him point blank, have you spoken with PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan? And considering what he said about the tour, the way he referred to them as greedy, considering in your piece, he has leaned heavily on the fact that, hey, I'm a lifetime member. You know, he's trying to play that up. I'm a lifetime member of the PGA Tour. He seems to be leaning on that quite a bit. He has not resigned, unlike some of the other players, as a PGA Tour member. The fact that he said, I have not had contact with Jay Monahan, and there's been no reaching out, no conversation, that surprised me a great deal. Did it surprise you, or was there another item from your interview that caught you off guard that maybe that made you scratch your head a little bit?
Well, no, that's a great point. I mean, first of all, you would think that no matter what, he would have talked to Monahan. The fact that he suggested that he hasn't. And I think that's kind of telling, you know. And then he kind of tried to veer off. He said, I don't want to go into my issues with the tour, you know. And so that suggests to me that he still has them. Like, he's not been satisfied. He still feels some of those things that he said. I don't know if he meant to say obnoxiously greedy. I think the better way to term that, and that what you hear from the other players, is they don't exactly know what's going on with all the money that flows through the tour. And that's not to suggest at all that there's anything nefarious going on. It's just that, you know, why isn't more of it going to them? You know, it's a logical question. Why are they not getting more of it? And they see all these millions and millions of dollars flow in through all these various entities. And it goes back to, I wrote about this today on SI.com. I mean, the whole idea that, you know, these guys do not get paid unless they perform. And that's pretty unusual in the entertainment world. You know, I had an agent tell me, you know, a box office movie star doesn't make a movie and only get paid at the end. You know, they get a fee, and then, you know, maybe they might make money on the back end, but they get a fee. It's pretty much how that happens in sports. But in golf, you show up on Thursday morning, and the guys who are, you know, at the tournament this week there are, you know, there's no guarantees. They better shoot the numbers to make the cut. And you could have been a huge draw and sold tons of tickets, and if you miss the cut, you're not getting paid. And I do think that for the star players, the ones who bring value, that very topic hits home. And it's kind of where we're at this point right now.
Yeah, it certainly does hit home. And, Bob, it's still so hard to believe where we were in May of 2021. Phil Mickelson walking down the 18th fairway at Kiowa Island with thousands and thousands of fans chanting, Phil, 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 and Phil thumbs-upping and giving, you know, what's probably one of the most historic victories in golf history. And now he said he's going to be at the U.S. Open. We saw the reception he got at Kiowa Island. What kind of reception do you expect Phil to get next week at the U.S. Open from fans?
I think it'll be mostly positive. I really do. I think it'll mostly be positive. Phil has a lot of fans. I mean, the negativity that you hear is mostly in the background. And I would totally expect that, you know, maybe there's going to be a few people. It doesn't happen that much in golf, you know. So I expect him to be well received. And I would think that would be the same thing here. So it's an interesting deal, and I do, you know, he's a popular guy. He's done a lot for the game. Some people might be put off by this. I get that, but you know, I guess what I say throughout all of this is what would any of us do? And let's forget about where the money's coming from, because that is a very, very difficult political subject. But let's say it was just I keep saying, what if an American billionaire was putting up this money? It would still be controversial. You know, you're going against an institution like the PGA Tour. But would we begrudge somebody for wanting to go make more money to do something else? You know, it's like when an upstart media begins, you know, the people in our business might look at that as another opportunity. Might they turn their back on somebody that's been very loyal to them? You know, people have to make decisions based on their own circumstances. And And that's why I think, this is not an easy issue at all.
Bob, before we let you go, ask you to speculate a little because we're all trying to figure it out. Do you have any idea or any speculation at all on how severe or big the pushback might be by Jay Monahan and the tour? Do they try to go past a season in terms of suspension, ban, etc.? And part two of that question would be: do you see any way, or do you see any possibility of any other governing body that runs a major golf championship pushing back in any capacity?
Well, the first question, I'm curious myself as to how they're going to handle this. Can you really ban a guy for more than this year? I mean, I can understand if he's playing the events this year, that you'd say you can't play. I would think you take this on a year-by-year basis. What if, I know these guys some of them have allegedly signed deals for 3 or 4 or 5 years. All right, so what if they change their mind next year? What if they decide they want to come back? Why wouldn't they be allowed to, especially if they're exempt? I mean, they should be allowed to go do something else. So, okay, give up your tour membership. You can't play on the tour if you're going to do this. I can understand that punishment. But then to not be able to come back if you wanted to, that seems pretty harsh. Maybe there'd be some other penalty before you could come back. Maybe there'd be a fine. Maybe you'd get an added suspension. But, I mean, there should be a way back. And as far as the governing bodies, I just don't see how you do not allow these guys to play. The PGA Tour does not run golf. As great as they are, as big as it is, as much good as it does, they don't run golf. There's golf tours all around the world. And there's many, many avenues into the majors. If a guy's qualified, how does somebody say, we're not going to let you play because we don't like where you decided to go play? I don't understand that. I mean, Dustin Johnson, won the U.S. Open in 2016 that came with a 10-year exemption. His Masters win has him exempt in all the majors. His Masters win from just 2 years ago. You're going to not want to have the best players in your tournament? I think that's dicey. So my guess is we're going to see them allow these guys to play. Now, maybe down the road they change the rules. They change their qualifications. Maybe it's harder for a guy to qualify if he's not on the PGA Tour. And I guess they're perfectly within their rights to do that. But to retroactively say a guy can't play, I have a hard time with that.
Yeah, that is a tough one. And to your point, this might affect more the younger players that have made the jump with official World Golf Ranking points and things of that nature. But Bob, we've taken up enough of your time. Thank you so much for doing this. Enjoy your time in London. That is still one of my favorite cities in the world. So enjoy London, England. At Bob Harig on Twitter. You can catch him on SI.com. Also, pick up his book, Tiger and Phil, Golf's Most Fascinating Rivalry. You can get it on Amazon and where books are sold everywhere. Bob, thanks so much for taking the time to do this with Adam and I this morning.
Thanks for the plug. That book's going to need a couple of extra chapters after all that's gone on. So,
I see part 2. Golf's Most Fascinating Rivalry Continued is the next book.
Yeah, certainly for the paperback. Yeah, I'm going to have to add some to it. So thanks a lot for having me, guys.